That the contract includes up to 60 days paid family care leave that was a mistake. The union response was clear.
My name is Josie Mooney. I was one of the chief negotiators for SEIU 10-1 in this dispute. I just have to say that we have to speak the truth here. You signed this agreement. The three people whose signatures is on this agreement signed it 90 days ago. So any day and every day, every party reviewed the tentative agreements and what was still outstanding. We exchanged lists. We went over them item by item. These are the things we've agreed to, correct? Yes, correct. These are the things we haven't agreed to, correct? Yes, correct. There is no taking away from the fact that this was not accidental, because it was signed and reviewed each and every day by the parties. That's number one. Number two, any notion that this was a clerical error is an insult to the workers that I represent. This was signed by your managers. This was signed by the person you hired to be the chief negotiator, who represented each and every day that he was there, that he had your authority to come to an agreement. It was signed by the deputy manager. It was signed by the director of employee relations. And I tell you what, since I've been doing this for a long time, I read what I sign in order to avoid any mistakes. And this was not a mistake that was made in the flurry of the last night. I've been in other negotiations where on the very last night people make mistakes. But I will tell you, and I mean this with all authenticity, your attorney and your management team reviewed each and every document and came back with punctual errors. They came back with minor word changes. At no time did they come back in 90 days and say, we signed this in error. Now, I've reflected on our negotiations because they were the most challenging that I've ever faced. And that shouldn't be the case. And it shouldn't be the case going forward. And I tell you, I had some regret while I was signing some of those proposals, because in my heart, I didn't think they were good for the workers. But the teams agreed in order to come to an agreement and to move the service forward for the working men and women of the Bay Area. No amount of PR spin, no amount of fantasy math can get away from the simple truth that we came to an agreement. It's not like we ratified an agreement that didn't include the pension pickup and sent it back to you and said, okay, that would be fine. We agree to everything except that. It isn't possible. You have to take it in its totality. Now, we've told you that we will sit down and go over the interpretation of what this language means. But the very fact that you're taking us on over FMLA is in and of itself incredible. People don't wish for their loved ones to become ill. People don't wish to have to stay home and take care of a parent or a child. And those who do should have our hearts and our thoughts and our commitment be with them, not enter into another dispute. Now, I'm asking you to authorize the agreement. And you have the union's commitment that we will sit down. But you can't piecemeal it. You have to vote it up in its entirety. That's what you pledged to us. That's what the general manager said when she had a press conference after we ratified the agreement and congratulated the parties in coming to an agreement.
My name is Charles Smith. I'm a former employee of East Bay Mud. I retired from there 3 years ago. I worked there 26 years. During that period of time, I was a chief steward for 12 years and always a steward. I participated in 4 negotiations at East Bay Mud, and we never had a strike. The last strike they had there was, I believe, in '85. I know a little bit about negotiations. I had actually quite a bit of experience in negotiations, and what you've heard here about the TAs is the absolute truth. When you're sitting at the table, and always for long periods of time, and you reach an agreement, it's called a TA, a tentative agreement, and it's gone over with a fine-tooth comb. And then it's signed off. And furthermore, when we get done with our negotiations at East Bay Mud, we take them to our attorney. We don't have an attorney sitting, or we never have had an attorney sitting in on our negotiations. We take them to the Ask Me office, and the attorneys go over it, come back and report to us how they feel about it, what's legal, what's not, that kind of stuff. So, in my opinion, considering the amount of money that was sitting at that table for hired guns, and that includes the union officials as well as BART officials, the lawyers that you folks got, it's impossible to come back and say, we made a mistake. I can't believe that, and I've had a lot of experience in this business. This is nonsense. And I think that you people get your marching orders from the Bay Area News Group and Bornstein. That's what I think. But you're not really answerable to them. You're answerable to the companies, or to the people that you serve. And I'll tell you, if you turn this contract down, I'm going to be participating out in the streets to go on strike. And I have a little bit of influence in that arena. And you people will be shamed to death. And I doubt if we go out on strike, you'll win another election, because this baby is in your lap.
Chris Finn, recording secretary for ATU 1555, and I was just going to say that, again, we've seen an overstatement of the expected cost of this. Even the cost of the plan, we've heard that some board of directors have stated they cannot go over $67 million. That itself, I think you understand, is a number that is higher than the actual cost of the contract. The $67 million represents the cost as applied to the entire district. Again, we didn't negotiate raises for upper management. The actual cost of the contract as it applies to ATU and SEIU is in the neighborhood of $45 million. So you have a long ways to go before you reach your $67 million cap. The cost of this, 4.8, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million, $1.4 million per year, much lower than what your management folks are telling you. So again, that's greatly overstated. There were a number of things that we did not get value for in the attempt to get more concessions for the unions. We were not given value for the 15-year retirement medical vesting period. So there's plenty of leeway there. For the 40-hour work week that you guys pushed for, insisted was a top priority. We didn't get any costing or value for that. So if you're serious about your $67 million cap, you can well fit 4.8 within that. Again, everything that you put the Bay Area through during these negotiations, the 2 families, the 2 fatalities, that tragedy, the 2 strikes, that again, we did everything we could to avoid a strike. You know, I please ask the board of directors to keep your constituents in mind. You stated, Director Killer, I heard his interview, raising the issue of the constituency and being responsible to the members of the public. Well, you know, I hope you do your job with that in mind. Thank you very much.
Delta United Public Workers for Action. You know, this so-called glitch that Mr. Nallett is talking about is really a farce. You have paid the manager hundreds of thousands of dollars. You paid Mr. Thomas P. Hock of Veloia Corporation $400,000 to oversee the negotiations. And these people and your labor relations department missed this clause in the contract? Are you serious? Are you serious? We were outside in front and we talked to a person who reads contracts for a living. She's not a lawyer. She said, how could this be? How could this be? It's a lie. It's a flat-out lie. It's not a glitch. It's your continued effort to bust the unions. That's what this is. And I don't agree that it's a good contract. It's a concession contract. It's cost shifting for workers to have to pay for their health care and their pension. But it's not enough for you. You want more. You want more. So this negotiation process is one of a war against labor, not just the BART workers, but all workers. If you reject this tentative agreement, you're telling every other agency, government agency, they can do the same thing. They can have their negotiators come up with the TA and just say, to hell with you. We don't have to follow it. And there's going to be a backlash, because what you're doing is you're saying to the working people, we don't give a damn about you and your unions and your contracts. We're going to run it like a dictatorship. And the fact of the matter is the workers have the power in the Bay Area, as they did in 1934, to shut it down, to shut you down, and to shut this transportation agency down. And you are forcing it to do that because you're a confrontational provocation towards the working people of BART. And it's going to come back to haunt you. Even the Chronicle said accept the settlement. And the Examiner, the San Francisco Examiner said, if there's a strike, if you reject this and there's a strike, it's on you. It's on the management. Why are they saying that? They're saying that because they are afraid that there is going to be a strike. Now, unfortunately, the union leadership is terrified. They want to get an arbitrator. They're begging you, please, help us. Help us sell this to the membership. That's what they're saying. And why? Because the members are starting to wake up. They're starting to wake up that the tactics of compromise, the tactics of trying to make a deal with you and concession bargaining is a dead end. Every time they make more concessions, you want more. That's Grace Kunnigan. That's Thomas Hock. Give us some more. Give us some more. But you won't go after the billionaires, the downtown corporations in San Francisco who benefit from BART. No, you don't want a transit tax. You don't want to make the people who have the money pay. Instead, you're looking to take it out of the workers, the BART workers. And we say that's reactionary, that's the agenda of union busting in Wisconsin and other countries, and we have to have a labor community board to replace you. Because you are not representing the working people or the public. If there's another strike, you are responsible for it, of your actions. By putting in these union busters, these incompetents, and these liars to be in charge of negotiation. You are responsible. There's no report from the manager. Why not? You think the manager has a report today? Grace apparently has lost her tongue. She can't talk about what's happening. What kind of incompetence is that? And you're paying her $300,000 a year.
7, we have to address it right now. You had a $500,000 negotiator. It's $400,000 plus his cost. He did not stay at Motel 6. BART paid for his bar tab. And we had 2 managers. With their benefits, they make over $500,000. You had 3 people making $1 million. Read this, approved this. On the 21st of October, the board, the lieutenant governor, stood up and said, we have an agreement, a fair agreement. And now we are told on November 6th, that you found this oversight. That is 3 weeks after the tentative agreement was agreed upon. This is in big print. None of you read it? Where's your responsibility? You are the stewards of the public treasure. You did not bother to read this. Any language which is inserted, deleted, were highlighted and underlined. You did not read this. And you are the people, within the last 2 years, you agreed on contracts, gave contracts to vendors and subcontractors to the tune of $2 billion, including the new fleet. So you did not read this simple document. What makes you think that you did your due diligence when it came to contracts? The taxpayer paid. This is, you guys like the Three Stooges. You need to approve this. And how much contempt do you have towards our brothers and sisters in this union? You say it's going to cost you $44 million during the life of the contract. So are you telling me that all my sisters in my union are going to get pregnant because they're going to get 6 weeks off? Am I going to push my 83-year-old mother down the stairs so I can take care of her for 6 weeks with a broken hip? You have so much contempt towards your workers.
Yeah.
And this is enough. If this thing is going to fall apart, it's all up to you. You cannot take political cover by, who is the temporary employee are we talking about? Is it Tom Hock? He's not here to defend himself. It's the whole thing is a racket. You know that, I know that. Tom Hock is here. Tom Hock has got his hands on the paratransit. He has got his hands on the Oakland connection. When Ms. Krooniken was fired from Seattle, she started a consulting business, like any failed bureaucrat to influence peddle. Where was the most income coming from? Veloia and Tom Hock. I urge you to approve this, and we will take care of it. If you reject it, and the consequences are on you.
Mr. Volpe, I'm a train operator with BART for the last 2 years. And first of all, I apologize if this comes out disrespectful in any way, but you have been very disrespectful to me and my coworkers. I have been on workers' comp for the last 6 months due to a preventable injury that was reported before I got hurt on the equipment and have been off for 6 months. Therefore, my children do not get Christmas presents this year on something that we've been saying we need safety, and you all want to overlook that. So that's one thing. You guys have spread lies about us to the point where the public is so angry at us that now we are in jeopardy of having things stolen from us. Station agent got their car stolen out of Concord Station. And the comments underneath of that, they can afford another one. Really? I'm a single mom with 3 kids. Something happens to my car, I'm messed up. I can't afford to get a new car. You guys have caused an extremely hostile work environment for us. I feel more bad for the station agents because as a train operator, I'm locked in my little cage in the front. And if something happens, I can close my doors and go. But those station agents are right out there, and you guys have caused this hostility between everyone. Now, I am also somebody who receives FMLA for my daughter. I don't know if any of you all are parents. My 7-year-old daughter has epilepsy, a brain cyst, migraines, and a noise sensitivity. Now, if you turn this down, if something happens and that cyst turns cancerous like they thought it did 2 years ago, I'm gonna lose my house. The house that I've worked so hard to get because I'm not gonna have pay. So what am I supposed to say? No, well, please don't get sick for another 4 years until I have enough time to cover that and not take a vacation at all with them? Because I'm gonna have to have that vacation time, right? Isn't that right? I'm gonna have to have vacation time to pay that. So hopefully, we don't have to deal with that, but what happens if it does? I lose my house. I lose everything I've worked hard for. Okay? I've had FMLA this entire year. I've used maybe 4 days of it. 4 days. Not 6 weeks, and a third of us are not gonna use 6 weeks of it. It's absolutely ridiculous. And to Grace. You came up to me on my train at Richmond Station. You came up and acted like you cared about us. You said, what can we do for you? What can I do for you? And you asked me, what would be my #1 thing? And I said, safety. You know what you said? I'm surprised you're not asking me for more money. And I told you, more money would be nice, but safety is #1, so that I come home safe to my children every night. I hope you guys do the right thing and don't mess this up for me and my children.
I'm a rank and file member of Amalgamated Transit 1555, and I'll be speaking as rank and file member and a citizen of this city for Oakland for 50 years. The last time I spoke before the board, I warned you that you needed to follow your own operation, rules, and procedures. According to the rules, BART mission is to provide safe, reliable, and quality transportation services. Safety is the most important element in performance of our duties. Accountability for safety rests within each employee, supervisor, and manager. All are responsible for meeting the safety requirements inherent to their positions. Compliance with the operation rules and procedures is essential to the safe operation of the BART system. My understanding is that as a BART board of director and general manager, you have not met your responsibilities for the offices that you hold. You failed to meet your responsibilities with the contract negotiations and the tragic and senseless death of 2 people. Why did this happen? Because you did not even follow your own rules. You put us all at risk. Additionally, you brought bad publicity to BART safe and reliable transportation service. We, the BART workers, transport more people than all the airlines do in one day. In the following sections of the BART ORMP, Section 1, General 1101, the rules contained in this book apply to all district employees and contractors. General 1108, violations of operation rules, procedure bulletins, notices, or other directives must be reported to the supervisors as soon as possible. Based on this Rule 1108, I'm reporting to you once again that the BART operation rules and procedures have not been followed, which led to the senseless death of 2 people. Employee conduct, 1301. Employees shall treat superior subordinates and fellow district employees with respect. They shall be courteous and civil at all times with their contacts with each other. During contract negotiations, ATU 1555 workers were demonized and in no way treated with the respect that is articulated in Section 1301. Then Operations 1402. Supervisors or personnel in charge shall ensure that personnel under their direction perform their tasks safely without taking unnecessary risks. So I want to know on the day that the 2 people were killed, it does not appear that this rule was followed. Now, Operations 1403. Personnel should not operate train, vehicles, or other equipment unless qualified and authorized to do so. So the 2 senseless deaths, you didn't even follow that rule, your own Rule 1403. Because you did not follow your rules, tragic and senseless deaths are on your hand. Because you did not follow your own rules, the reputation of BART is contrary to its mission of providing safe and reliable transit.
Mr. Hurley, you're talking about?
No, I have some people that extended their time to me.
I don't.
Reputation,
Mr. Hurley,
because
please conclude your comment.
I am. No, I'm almost finished. Okay, but you guys need to hear this about the rules. You need to obey. You're asking me to obey them anyway. Because you did not follow your own rules, we don't even have a contract in place. So I'm closing. Safety. 2101, personnel should comply with the safety rules of the district and with the safety regulations of the department in which they work. Safety 2102, in case of doubt, in any situation, a safe course of action must be taken. Now, did you really think it was a safe course of action to have trainees without a train operator or employment development specialist training? Please follow your own rules. Safety 2106, personnel shall not be assigned work beyond there for which they have been properly trained or beyond their capabilities to perform. Are you still putting employees at risk by asking train operators to remove cover boards on the 3rd rail? My last sentence. In closing, BART has a mission that is very clear with the rules supporting the delivery of that mission. The events of the past few months have been a blatant disregard for the very purpose of your office, resulting in 2 senseless deaths and no contract in place, despite ridiculous concessions, and this is my own personal belief, made by ATU workers to continue operation for the sake of the traveling public.
Some of you will recognize me.
I was going to introduce you, Larry.
I worked for BART from 1977 until 1997 as your chief negotiator. I negotiated, I can't even remember the number, well over 25, 30 contracts with these same unions that you are currently negotiating with. As Josie described to you, the negotiation process is not a frivolous process. The purpose of tentative agreements are to move the negotiation process along. And as those agreements are signed, they are reviewed by each party, signed, set aside. And the reason for that is to expedite the negotiation. So as you go down the line, knowing that when you get to the tough issues at the end, you want to have all that behind you. Those agreements are signed in good faith, and they're signed with that understanding. I debated as to whether to say anything this morning, but my big concern here is, when I was here, we had one major strike in 1979. In fact, I'd only been with the organization for 3 weeks when that strike commenced. We had a 12-week strike. Relationships were difficult. We reestablished relationships as a result of those negotiations. And for the remainder of the time that I was here, we didn't have labor management problems like I sense that you're having now. Because we respected the workers, we understood their needs, we understood that they run this organization. Even though you, as board members, have policy direction, they run this organization. And without them, you cannot effectively run this organization. And I would implore you to live up to the good faith agreement that was reached during these negotiations and ratify the contract. I would also tell you that the costing that you've been given on this is grossly overestimated. There is no way you're going to have enough employees take advantage of this agreement to cost you $44 million over the course of 4 years. All you have to do is look at the number of people who have already used the benefit that was already in place before as a reasonable indication as to what's likely to be expected. And that's why the unions are telling you probably closer to 1.4 million. But be that as it may, I would ask you to consider this. If after the negotiations have been completed and the unions and their review process came to you and said, "Oops, we found a mistake. We didn't really agree to that. We didn't intend to agree to that. We want to delete that clause or get something more or different from what we signed off and agreed to." I would submit to you, your response would be totally different. So therefore, I implore you to live up to your agreement that has been reached, because you cannot imagine the difficulties that you will experience, both as policy leaders and managers, the devastation that this will have on the morale and the relationships between management and your employees going forward. If you don't ratify this agreement, you ain't seen nothing yet.
President Business Agent of ATU Local 1555. We have had the opportunity to talk to some of the board directly about the impact of the situation, the decision you're about to make. I would say in public that, again, we have lived up to our end of the bargain.
That's right.
We have taken our contract that we agreed to with your representatives to our members, and after much hard work and much debate with them, we brought back a passing vote. We ratified the contract that you requested that we ratify, and we did that. We have done our part. We are confident that you will do your part in voting in the contract that you stood up and said was a fair contract on October 21st, said that we would move forward, not take a step back. To vote this contract down is taking a step back. We are prepared to move forward. We hope that you are too. A lot of people claim that you are entrenched in your position. I'm going to err on the side of optimism and say that I hope that you are not. We have discussed at length with some of your members on what the actual reality is. The agreement was signed. It was signed in good faith on both sides. There was no trickery. There was no nefarious intent. It was an agreement that was reached. If there is some clarity that needs to be done, you understand our position, our statement that we are willing to clarify language. We are not able to take this contract back in piecemeal. And I think that you know that. Grace Kruniken told us that we would not take a contract with piecemeal going to arbitration. It's all or nothing. That's what you have, a complete agreement. Our members voted a complete agreement. And we hope that you will vote on a complete agreement and vote this contract in.
Contract go back to BART's two largest unions. The decision by the BART Board of Directors came after a meeting that lasted more than 2 hours.
After public comments, the board then went into private session to decide what to do. In the end, they approved the contract, but only if the family leave section is deleted. In effect, an approval and a rejection.
In 25 years of negotiating contracts with literally hundreds of employers, I've never seen this happen.
Calling the action illegal, the union will file an unfair labor practices complaint and made a none too veiled warning.
The union will consider its options. We will be in discussion with our attorneys this afternoon, and we will be in discussion with our members. This is an unfair labor practice. It is not legal. And we're going to have to obviously not let that part stand.
It's a pathway into the end zone, and I hope we all are able to follow that path.
So I will support it with that section deleted.
The anger before and after the vote was thick.
But the board's path fell short of resolving the dispute. The directors ratified the tentative agreement but did not approve one controversial provision that grants union members 6 weeks of paid family medical leave. BART officials admitted to signing the provision without reading it closely. The deal has already been ratified by SEIU and ATU members. Tonight, the rank and file say BART negligence and the board's action raises questions about the entire negotiating process.
How we proceed will be made public once that we've had sufficient time to consider what options are available and what course of action we should take.
These transit agencies, not just BART but Samtrans, there's a systemic pattern of corruption at these agencies. And the reason is because the developers and the speculators who make money off the expansion of BART are paying you off, like Mr. Mallon, who got money for contractors, and that was elected by the contractors. So all of you, or many of you, take money from contractors who do business with BART. And your agenda is the agenda of the contractors. This conflict of interest, really, is what this whole struggle is about with the unions. Because what you're saying is the workers, the BART workers, need to pay for the expansion of BART. They need to pay for the cost of BART, instead of the developers and building owners and the people, the speculators who make money off of property speculation with the advancement of BART. This conflict of interest is growing, actually, and that's why our position is that there should be a law preventing you from taking any money from developers and contractors. Additionally, there needs to be an investigation of the corruption in this board. Because you have a situation here where the manager, Kruniken, who may have been on that train, and I'd like to ask who was on the train. We can't get that in for the record. Who was on the train? The manager, Grace Kruniken, is on a council, Bay Area Business Council. Bay Area Council. But what does that council say? That council says that the BART workers should pay for this economic crisis. She's got a political agenda. Who's on the council? All the big companies and corporations in the Bay Area. That's who that council represents. I would say that's a conflict of interest. Who is Grace Kruniken representing? Is she representing the workers or the public, or the developers and the corporations in the Bay Area who want to bust the unions? So the conflicts of interest are endemic, are not only in the board of directors, but also in the management of this organization. And I think that there has to be some laws. I think there has to be investigation and prosecution of corruption and conflicts of interest of this board. who you're getting money from and who you're really representing, because you're certainly not representing the public and the working people who make BART work.
So it's a different contract if they take that out. So we would have to re-vote on it. Then can we line out something, or can we add lines to it? I mean, where does it end?
An ATU attorney tells me union officers would have to decide whether any new agreements with BART management around the family leave provision would necessitate another vote. And because this was a joint contract, both unions must agree.
I don't think anybody wants to go back on strike.
A strike as a last option, though, is not being ruled out, as some of the rank and file might feel the 6-week leave is important enough to fight for. Others say they would oppose BART's last-minute changes on principle.
Do you think this warrants a strike?
I don't think so. But, you know, that's something that we have to look forward on the road.